we are back with another live session, and super excited for this one actually, because it has been a while since we have done this on Instagram. At least we have been doing this on Facebook, but it's a special day. We are making a sort of comeback, and the book for today is very special because one of my favorite authors is coming on, and we are going to talk about this one, the hottest summer in years. And you'll realize when we are done discussing the book that why is this one really amazing and top notch. So the author will be with us. Surprise, surprise. I mean, yeah, I think she's right here. So let me add her, and we'll take it from there.
Hi,
Oh, hi Anu, how are you?
nice to see you. You haven't changed, and yeah,
That's amazing. It's so great to talk to you, because if you remember, just before the pandemic, hit us all, and we had,
coming back to the
chatted
city.
about this book right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
If you remember. So
Yes,
it's
yeah,
yeah, it's very special talking to you again, and just give me a moment. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah.
Okay.
And I remember the lovely video you posted, Neha, and you posted about your daughter with my Hachette kids book, Wonder Kids. That was wonderful. And yeah, Rohan,
Yeah, I
I
have that one. Actually, I have that one as well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
have to
okay.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
I have to say, your
Let's not
daughter
get
did a good job.
okay. Let's not get way ahead of ourselves. We need to get back to what we are here for, and we are here for this one, the hottest summer in years. And I was telling everyone, um, see, it's very weird, when the author is in front of you and you end up, praising the book. It's very weird. So, anyways, so I'll be praising the book a little bit, and of course, I have so many questions for you.
Thank
For
you.
those of you, yeah, for those who are watching, if you don't know about Anuradha, and I'll tell you a little bit, she has written 10 novels, okay? And if you haven't checked them out, go check them out. We'll leave the Amazon link in the bio when we post this IGTV video. And I would like to, I mean, I'll show you some. Of course, this is the latest, and there's one coming up also. We'll ask Anuradha about that one. And coming back to the city, of course, that is what we, discussed on Facebook. And you can check out the Facebook Live if you want to. Then there is Emperor Vikramaditya, and this is an entire series, guys. So you can check it out on Amazon. There are two more, Emperor Chandragupta and Emperor Harsha. So that's a series which Anuradha writes with a pseudonym, and it's called Aditya K. And those you can check out. And also Anuradha contributes to so many good online newspapers and news portals like the Scroll, like the Wire, and how can I forget the Economic and Political Weekly? So all of that is happening, of course. Then I forget Letters for Paul and It Takes a Murder. So there is a whole list, you need to check out. Go to her Amazon page and check them out and pick up the latest book. So yeah. Oh, I forgot the children books. Wonder Kids, and I forget the Myth Quest series. How can I forget that? And that is by Hachette, is it?
Yeah,
Anuradha?
yeah. Most of my books for younger readers have been by Hachette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So that was the introduction, of course. But we are here to discuss the hottest summer in years. While reading this one, I was like, I mean, I had read the reviews, of course, but that is like the expectations are way high up, and I also posted on social media that I have too many expectations out of this one, and it absolutely lived up to it. And I was telling my teammates as well, you got to read this, and if you got to improve as a writer or you are just a reader, you got to read it. So, first of all, tell me something, why this plot? I mean, because it doesn't just stay in India, it goes,
Yeah.
it is at the same time, uh, in the World War somewhere, in Germany, and then of course Southwest Africa. There's so much going on. Tell us a little bit about the plot so that the readers get into this world a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for having me, Rohan. Well, it's actually is that there are myriad streams which sort of point to the novel's origin. The fact is, I started writing it about 10, 12 years ago, and it
Yeah,
began just an image in my head, an image that comes up only in the very last chapters of the book. And
right.
the more I thought about it, it led me back to a certain past, uh,
Yeah,
a past even before I came along in my parents' life, and a past that's hidden away in my parents' black and white photograph albums.
yeah,
And I've always been curious and intrigued about that, because one is always
yeah.
curious about what one's parents were like when we were not there. I think they were totally
Oh
different beings.
yes.
uh, you know, I think when we come along in our parents' lives, they become somewhat different individuals, and we
True,
forget to
true.
see them as individuals, and we just see them as parents. So I was
Right.
also kind of curious about that, and then being a student of history. I was always very intrigued about the period immediately after independence, the
Yeah,
Nehruvian years when there was so much hope
yeah,
and so many things were
yeah,
happening. It was a
yeah,
period of rapid modernization, and yet India was a
yeah.
country with old traditions, old customs, and
Right.
how this new government was trying to meld both of these together to make a new
Yeah,
country. So I've been
yeah,
intrigued with a lot of things like that. And
yeah.
then there was a small town in central India, in Orissa actually, where my parents
Oh,
lived.
yes.
And it was
Yes.
fascinating because it had this German steel plant. So there was a lot of cosmopolitanism in that small town, and yet a lot
Yeah,
of ancient traditions. The ethnic groups still lived on there who were deprived of their land. So there's this whole entire
yeah,
different controversy that comes into this book. So a lot of
yeah,
streams going into it. So it took me a lot of time to figure it out. How to put all these together. And
yeah.
so I guess that's why it took me 12, 13 years to write this book. And yeah, and
Wow.
yeah.
I didn't know that. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, because is it counterproductive or productive to do that? I'm just asking because when it takes a lot of time, maybe you have too much time at hand to kind of edit what you have done. And would you want to shed light on that, and we'll then get into the book per se?
Yeah, like when I had a first draft ready, say about 10 years ago, I just
Yeah,
knew intrinsically it wasn't ready yet. Like it
yeah,
was untidy at best, even if I'm being kind to myself, it was untidy and messy.
yeah,
So I just
yeah,
let it be for a while. And
yeah,
at the same time, in these last 10 years, a lot of changes happening in my life because I left India and I moved to different
yeah.
countries. So,
Right.
that, even though I left the novel aside for a bit, these changes,
Yeah.
I mean, on hindsight, did help me write this book because I sort of figured out what kind of person the protagonist Hans Gerder might be, because he was also moving
Yes.
around so much. He felt
Yeah.
that sense of being an outsider,
Oh, yes.
being alienated. So looking back, these movements helped me when I came back to the novel finally 4 years ago. And I
Yeah.
came back at a particularly sad moment in my life because I had just lost my father.
Yeah.
And when after
So
my
sorry
father,
about that. So sorry about that. I read. I think you have mentioned it
yeah,
somewhere. And yeah.
yeah. So I wanted to, I kept thinking of my father and what he was like as a young man, more idealistic. And he used to keep talking about meeting Nehru and stuff like that. So I felt,
Yeah.
so I felt motivated to go back to it. And
Yeah.
somehow all these different things happening in my life coalesced together and helped me.
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of things, a novel
Yeah.
might be a small thing, but there's always an entire history behind it. Not just what
Yes.
happens in
Yes.
the novelist's life, but circumstances around,
True.
in the world around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, I I wanted to know a lot about Hans Gerder, and I ended up, doing that. At the core of it all, it's a love story, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because there is so much going on. Because it's to be honest, I felt that it may be for a mature reader. Do you feel that?
Yes.
Is it not? Yeah, yeah. Because I felt that too much is going on, in kind of I would say in a Tarantino-esque kind of way.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to be of a certain, I would say, taste to kind of enjoy it and read it slowly. Also, isn't a book which you might kind of rush through. And I tried to do it in the beginning, and I was like, okay, Rohan, just relax, just take your time. So, do you feel the same way, or you would disagree with that?
No, in fact, I, I, I like writing novels like that, uh,
Okay.
a novel that is an entire world in itself, a novel that will take you in, that will take you in by the hand and into a different world, where you
Yeah.
can spend some time and find out about this different world, a different time, a different era.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I might say something not too agreeable or even controversial, but the thing is, even Letters for Paul, which was my first novel, and It Takes
Yeah.
a Murder. These earlier novels were also set in Orissa. So I
Yeah.
wanted to tell the reader more about Orissa, a
Yeah.
certain kind of Orissa that I, as an outsider in that place, even though I was born there,
Yeah.
knew about.
Yeah.
But I just felt that, I mean, I had a lot of struggle getting these two earlier novels published because it seems only a certain kind of writer can write difficult novels. So
Yeah.
that's an entire different story by itself. But I'm
Yeah.
glad. But I'm very glad that some editors, some publishers had faith in what I was trying to say.
Oh,
So like
yes.
I said, there's an entire different history and the story behind these novels. And yeah,
Right.
I like writing difficult, universal novels, which present a
Right.
different world for the reader to get in and walk through and spend some hours in, and perhaps see the world in a different way because of this novel. So that's it. Maybe
I
it's
mean,
unrealistic, but
I was totally entertained because it had everything that I needed. I love whodunits, and
okay.
the part of it I love most, that it is a whodunit, and it's a very different kind of at that. I mean, so I enjoyed it, and I was also happy that I have to kind of work hard at it. I mean, there is, sorry to say that, but a lot of average stuff is going around. But that's why I loved it. Also, I wanted to go to page 11, and this part kind of am I audible clearly?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, sure. So on page 11, I actually and kind of this part kind of put me right into the world that you have created. So I would just like to read a little bit, and then we can have your comments on that. So the air surged toward us periodically from the one fan that worked. A pankha, wide as a curtain and creaking, swung slowly from the ceiling. Every time the pedestal fan turned its head away, its blades moving slowly, the pankha's somnolent movements only brought in more heat. Then the man called Ghana settled in and cranched himself into the alcove, half hidden by the pankha, intending to pull it. We heard the measured creak of its ropes, and Tilo's foot slid away from mine. Servants always noticed indiscretions. Even I, who had grown up half a world away, could vouch for this. So, this meeting, with hands there and Tilo is there, it is so tantalizing, because I felt that something is going to happen. I knew that this is just the start, but uh, the way you have written it, it's always like, something is going to happen. Tell us more how you started kind of developing this world and the main sort of characters, Tilo, Lipsa, referred to as Lisa, of course,
yeah,
mostly, and Raja Sahib, and the protagonist, of course, and Das. Who can forget Das?
yeah. The villain. Yeah. Okay, how I develop the characters. Like I said, Rohan, in the beginning, it started with just one image that I had. The image of that comes at the very end of the book. It's a small fleeting image. When
Yeah,
I started, actually, it was the main thing that prodded me along to write this novel. So it's an image of
yeah,
hands, walking through the weed covered driveway and looking up and
yeah,
seeing Lisa in her wedding finery standing at the window.
yeah,
So, but then the more I worked on this novel and thought over it and I came back to it, that kind of shifted.
Yeah.
And about the characters, okay, I think only Lisa is someone I knew in real life in school, but
Okay. Okay.
the Lipsa I knew is very different from the one who
Okay.
comes.
Okay.
But I mean, even now thinking back, I'm surprised because all of these characters, I've never met them in real life. I just kind of worked on them. I kind of worked on them. I inhabited their lives for a bit. I stood in their shoes for a bit, and
Yeah.
I guess that's how it happened.
Yeah.
They all they all came out from something I concocted, and
Yeah.
I mean, I came to feel very deeply for all of them, even Das and the
Actually,
guy.
Das, talking about Das, Das is so enigmatic. And through the book, entire book, the character is enigmatic. You never know what he's up to, what he's doing. And still, he's doing his job. So, would you like to tell us more? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, Das was he was the only thing familiar about Das is the fact that he's a police officer, and my
Yeah.
father himself was an IPS officer from the
Okay.
Orissa cadre. Okay, so
Okay.
I mean, you could say that he was an amalgam of all the other officers my father interacted and
Okay.
met, and whom we also met during the time we stayed in Orissa, about
Yeah.
10, 12 years. So
Yeah.
he was a compilation of everything, a bit someone you could mock, but someone you had to be wary of because he was dangerous. He was,
Yeah.
I mean, a kind of villain in the story, and
Yeah.
manipulative, quite Machiavellian. So
Yeah.
I kind of melded all these together and brought it uh, to shape Das. But of course he changed. He changed and he became who he was all through the years I stayed with this novel. So maybe in the
Yeah.
beginning he was more ambiguous.
Yeah.
But I guess
Yeah.
the more the as the novel takes shape, the characters too take
Yeah.
shape, and that's how he came to be. Yeah. So
Yeah. Sam Journo is asking, you are
yeah,
so prolific.
I
I
heard.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
I
Samira.
believe the question is that how are you so prolific? Of course, and you have written. I mean, there are so many colors on your shelf, So you have written a history book. I mean, I would say Emperor Vikramaditya is just in that bracket. I mean, it's just history, and then you have written children books, and how do you do it? Like prolific sort of writing. Anything you would like to tell people who are trying to kind of get into the business of writing?
Yeah. First, I can see the comments, and I just apologize because I'm quite awkward on Instagram. So I'm grateful for your comments. So if I'm slow in replying, please forgive me. Yeah,
No
about
worries, no worries.
the being prolific, I think it's more an accident than anything else. I came
Okay.
to writing frankly very late. When I had
Yeah.
been an absolute failure in everything else, and when I was about 29, 30, and I worked in economic and political weekly, I was
Yeah.
honestly worried that, here life was passing me by, and here are all my
Yeah.
friends and cousins and everyone I know doing wonderful stuff, and I'm doing nothing. And all I wanted to do was give back something to the world, do something
Yeah.
meaningful, even in a small way.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I don't know why this why this be, why this prolificacy label has been attached to me. It's just that
Yeah.
I do write. I mean, I write every day, and most of my writing has to do with history because history is a
Right.
subject I loved all through my masters. I mean, my college, my masters days, and even
Yeah.
later. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think I love history more because for a time in my life I had lost history because I went into management to please my
Yeah.
parents, and I worked for a bit in the corporate world.
Yeah.
So when I came back to history while in the economic and political weekly, I knew it was a gift that had been given me, and
Yeah.
I was just very grateful of the opportunities I got to write about history, because anything that one writes seriously has to have some bit of history in it. Like if I
Right.
was writing, if you're thinking of, say, a present day situation in India, you would
Yeah.
realize that there's always a historical context to it,
Yeah.
and to understand that better, and to
Yeah.
understand that with some perspective, a knowledge of history always helps. So that has always stood me in good stead while I do my writing, and it's only in these last 4 5 years, Rohan, that
Yeah.
I'm kind of I'm kind of grateful for the kind of chances I've got to write about things that really matter, whether it's historical fiction
Right.
like Harsha and
Yeah.
Chandragupta and Vikramaditya,
Yeah.
and these
Yeah.
other books, the articles for Scroll, they all have history in them, and
Yeah.
I try to make it meaningful. Like for example, Harsha and Vikramaditya, they all had as rulers, even if it's fiction.
Yeah.
The fact is,
Yeah.
as rulers, they had certain challenges in their time, and India even then was a very diverse
Yeah.
country with people with a lot of beliefs, even though they
Yeah.
were in a very nascent stage. How did these kings manage to bring together these different people to make an
Yeah.
empire? I think those challenges, those concerns still matter now. So,
Yeah.
these things intrigue me and they matter to me still. And
Yeah.
so I guess that's why I've been writing about history. And
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's called being prolific. It's just that I love doing it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about Hans and, of course, the German backdrop that you have put in the novel. Why that, and how does it fit into the entire scenario? Because you have talked about certain things that were like, I felt like maybe should you talk about it or not, because it's Germany. I mean, it's the World War and it's the Führer and all that. How do you kind of write everything and also be careful at the same time? Were there any kind of you were thinking about it, or you went all out with it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Maybe I'll not be able to answer it properly. That's really a very thoughtful
Doesn't matter.
So yeah, so the thing is, this town where this novel is set is actually Rourkela in Orissa,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
soon after independence, these steel mills were set up in 4 5 big towns in India.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Durgapur was the steel plant in Durgapur was set up with British help, and there were Bhilai
Yes.
ones in Bhilai and Bokaro. So Rourkela was the one which was set up with West German and American help, and of course the uh, Indian system. Uh, and from my mother's stories and the photographs in their albums, I saw a lot of photos of the club and the German people, and they seemed so. In that kind of setting and the stories my mother said, this it seemed so interesting that what were these German engineers, German officials doing in the middle of nowhere? Because Rourkela literally
True.
it's in the heart of India, and
Right.
yeah. So the more I thought about it, and Hans was essentially a very marginal character in the novel, but as I said, because I had been moving around a lot, and I kind of
Yeah.
empathized with the movements he made, with his being an outsider. So he kind of it was not conscious, these things just
Yeah.
happen in a very organic way. And I came to identify a bit with Hans, his movements, his feeling
Okay.
alienated, his
Yeah.
wanting to belong, his desperate need to belong, his need to find
Yeah.
love. All this seeped in, and that's why the Germanness helped, because I actually knew it from the stories. My mother used to tell these
Right.
exciting, sometimes scandalous stories about them, and yeah. And yeah, about the other thing about the controversy, you mean about mentioning Hitler and
Yes. I mean.
Adolf
Yeah.
Eichmann? Yeah, I had to be very careful about that. I mean, one thing helped was that it was kind of incidental to the story.
Yeah.
Hans being in Berlin at the time of the Second World War, and even Eichmann's visit to Southwest Africa, which
Yeah.
actually happened.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
kind of take up 1 2 chapters in the book, uh, and
Yes.
and because I was able to write it from Hans's perspective, the perspective of
Right.
an outsider always helps,
Yeah.
because you're sizing up a situation, or sizing up a person. So there
Yeah.
was the kind of innocence about it, which
Yeah.
I guess helps. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I'm trying to think through as a writer if it helps anybody listening.
Yes.
So yeah.
No, actually, it answers it, because if you had a very like, your view per se, I mean, political sort of view, then it would have been kind of, in a problematic zone. But it seems very organic that okay,
Yeah.
Hans is just goes to Germany, and I won't reveal it all. Of course, people have to read the novel,
Yeah.
and yeah. So it's amazing that I want to talk about the women characters a little bit, because I don't want them to be I don't want people in the comments to say you haven't talked about any women character.
Okay.
The writer is also a woman, okay,
Yeah.
guys? So, so Tilo and Lipsa, I mean, I felt kind of bad for them a lot, at times, because, here they are in this, they are just wasting away, of course, in this palace. And, post independence, I'm sure the kings, and you have heard stories about them, so you would be able to tell us more. What was the status of these kings, and, how did their family members and kind of, cope with the sudden change in sort of, status, and what was happening back then in the 60s?
Okay. Let me just start from 1940. I'm not going to give you a history lesson. Let me just start from 46, 47. So when
Yeah,
this the accession of the princely states, it gathered
yeah,
force. Sardar
yeah,
Patel and Vallabhai Patel, and he had a very able administrative officer helping him, VP Menon. I think there's a
yeah,
book written about it recently. Uh, so they were actually trying negotiating with these different princely states, and there were more than 500. We just hear of the big
right,
ones like Kashmir, controversial one, and the one in Junagadh. There was the
yeah,
Nizam of Hyderabad. But Orissa
yeah,
had lots of these small princely states, about 12 or 15 of them, small,
yeah,
hidden away in the districts of Dhenkanal, and which I'm sure many people haven't heard.
yeah,
Dhenkanal, Mayurbhanj, even
yeah,
Sambalpur. So
yeah,
they were, idealized and looked up to, and suddenly, for a long time, they did get their, you know, they had a certain allowance granted to them by the British government, which the Nehru
right,
government continued for a long time. It was only Indira Gandhi
yeah,
who put an end to it in the late 1960s. So they
yeah,
had these, these custom privileges and everything, but slowly all all their privileges were being taken away, and but they still
yes,
lived with that aura of honor, of being respected, of being held as respectable. But they
yes,
lived in this dual world, so it was kind of tragic
yes,
listening to their stories, because there were these huge gambling palaces and little
yeah,
money to maintain them, and you could see the
yeah,
decay everywhere
yeah,
and stuff like that. So there were some who adjusted to the times, some who did not. But I guess the later generations did.
yeah,
I mean, as you read about. But so there was an element of tragedy in this, and also hope, because any tragedy is also an opportunity to recreate oneself.
yeah,
And I hope to be optimistic, because Lipsa did find love and stuff like that. I
yes,
want to
yeah.
give that away, but
Let's not reveal too much. Everybody is watching. So yeah. So on page 227, I read something really beautiful. And if you could read it, I mean, it's the last para. If you could place that.
Uh, for there is a time when memories become just like the accumulated baggage one has stored away in an upstairs attic. Knowing it's there gives you the assurance that you have lived. But take it all down, and you're amazed at what you have acquired over the years. The stuff that was once yours has taken up too much space, even in your head. And looking at it will not tell you anything about the person you were, but rather the person you would rather not have been. That's it. That's it.
This
Thank
this
you.
connects this connects on so many levels, and it's yeah. Tell us more. I mean, because this is kind of at the end of the novel, but a little bit more while you were writing it. What were you thinking? And it's beautiful. I mean, it's
Thanks.
just beautiful.
Yeah. Actually, I'm reading this book. I'm reading my own book after 1 year. So the fact that so the fact that I wrote it is,
Tell me
like,
something. Tell me something. How quickly is it all right to kind of go back to your work and read it? Do you kind of do that, or is it counterproductive? Uh, do you do that often?
yeah.
Okay.
The fact about writing is the rewriting and the revision that's necessary. That takes up actually more
Yeah.
time, and I actually am a firm believer in that. But
Yeah.
once it's published, and I'm holding it in a book form like this,
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
scared. I mean, I would rather, it's out in the world like a small child, and it has to make its way
Yeah.
for itself. And
Yeah.
I just hope for empathetic readers like you and everyone here who will who will understand a bit of what went into it. And I mean, a novel has a life of its own, so I let it go. But so that's why
Yeah.
this is the first time I went back to it. Yeah. So, do you want me to answer the
Yes.
question now about memory and
Oh yes, oh yes, of course, of course. And before that, I want to tell someone who's asking if the book is available on Kindle. It is. It is.
it
You can
is,
get.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Balu is bored. Balu, don't be bored. We are, talking about some great stuff. And later on, we are going to talk about Germany also. So that might interest you. Yeah, anyways.
Okay, that's his Insta name. I just said. I just saw that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like that particular paragraph is about memory in the and how we construct memories in our head. And
Yeah,
the more I was working on this novel, and there were other things I was doing too simultaneously, mainly about art, mainly the pieces that I research and write for
yeah,
Scroll. All of it have to do with history and memory. I mean,
yeah,
the two things are different and yet are connected, because
yeah,
there's an official history that we read, and the history that we all carry inside us. Our history, the history of our parents, of our families, the place where we belong. And how is this history and how are these memories constructed? Over time we realize that some of it is, from our own perspective. We might be biased, and we might have consciously thought
yeah,
about our past in a certain way, which is different from how others see that same past, the same shared past.
yeah,
And yet these memories are what make us. We are shaped by our memories, by our history. So all these things
yeah,
were going through my head while I thought about this. And Hans, of course, is bothered by his own memories. The encounter with Eichmann, his days in Berlin, the fag end of the Second World War, when the city of
yeah,
Berlin was actually contested by these uh, major powers. The
yeah,
Allied forces on one side and Russia on the other. I,
yeah,
so all these things made him who he was, because he was a young man at that time. I mean, he's a young man still at the end of the
yeah,
novel. But so that's why I wrote about memories being an accumulated baggage. And till the end of our lives, actually we are still sorting it out. I mean,
yeah. True.
hopefully we have long lives ahead, you more than me, of course. But yeah, it's a very fascinating exercise trying to sort through memories. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But tell me something. I mean, Hans has seen it all. Kind of, he has been to, I mean, three continents, more than
Yeah.
that, maybe. Yeah, four actually.
Four, yeah,
Four.
including India.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
uh, I mean, there could be a prequel to this novel, and we would figure out something else. But with Hans traveling so much, and he has seen the war, uh, and his relationship with his mother, uh, how do you kind of put it all together? Because he must be scarred. I mean, he has been through a lot. He has been even under the knife. So I mean,
yeah,
uh, so tell us more about that, because it's kind of it's very complicated character.
yeah. I know. Well, all of us are actually complex and complicated, and um, uh, yeah. As I said, he was German. He is German, and I guess the history of Rourkela helped me conjure him up. But obviously, I haven't been to South America, and I
Yeah.
haven't yet been to Berlin. So
Yeah.
you could actually uh, go there in my mind, and sort of it's such a blessing, stuff like Google Earth and Google Maps, stuff like that.
Oh my gosh,
Stuff like
we
I
want to know more about that. We want to know more about that, because some of it that you have written, like the detention center and etc.
Yeah,
etc. It's quite graphic. I mean, it's quite visual. I thought you have been to Germany. I mean, I
I
really thought.
I want to. I mean, it's quite a sobering thought, but I would like to go and see those places. But
Yeah.
well, I have an aunt whose whose parents are of Jewish origin. So, but
Okay.
I mean, I never spoke to her much about this. But maybe there's so many things that seep into that exist in our DNA. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
whether that helped. But yeah, I mean, I read a lot of that period. Just random reading.
Okay.
I wasn't reading it just to write this novel.
Right.
Uh, and then yeah, I knew about the Tempelhof airport, where he spent some time during the
Yes.
Second World War.
Yeah.
I read through history stuff, and to figure out Berlin, its streets and all that, Google Earth, Google Maps, always go there.
Awesome. So you need to be, slightly good with technology also to,
Oh yeah,
write.
yeah,
You
yeah.
have to kind of be. Tell me something. I mean, the murder, and there is so much happening around it. Um, how do you write a whodunit? I mean, is there a recipe to it, or you just go with it because it's not an easy sort of genre?
Yeah. This isn't a kind of I don't know whether this is a spoiler, but this isn't a proper kind of detective story. Of course,
Would give it.
it has all the elements. I mean, a dead body, a
Oh
policeman,
yes,
a police guy desperate to find the murder.
yes, yes,
But it's actually like with It Takes a Murder Before. It's actually literary fiction, and I try to solve many questions using a murder, and so it's
right,
become a whodunit and also a love story. So yes, it was. The mystery part took me the longest time to figure out,
yeah,
how to keep the suspense in it, and how to resolve how to resolve the fundamental issue in the novel, that how he first encounters the nightmare that will haunt him through the years, and how the two different, I mean, you must have, if you've read it, you know about the gunshots being linked
yes,
and all that. So
yes,
that took the longest time to figure out, because frankly, I was more at ease working on characters, working on Hans's
yeah,
character and
yeah,
Lisa's and her mother, and how the
yeah,
love story would figure out. And
right,
that's why I guess it took so long, because one strand was this, the love thing, and the other thing was the
yeah,
history and the murder. The two, one attempted murder, the other not. So
yeah,
that's why it took so long to figure it out.
yeah.
And yeah.
Uh, on page 27, you write that, and Hans is kind of, frustrated with, uh, I mean, he says that these people just did not understand all the big things, development, modernization, big steel plants, 5-year plans, and the dams would never work if the old pettiness did not change. So, he's talking about, at that point of time, Indians kind of not, looking ahead and just going back again, I mean, it was a very difficult time, of course, for the country because we didn't understand ourselves at all. I'm not saying that we understand ourselves right now, but, back then it would have been, perhaps more difficult because it was just 1960 or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was Hans was thinking of this in relation to these two particular men who came to meet him. That they seemed to rooted in their past and in their
Yeah,
customs and in their own beliefs, and it
yeah,
surprised him that here was a country which was setting up its steel plant
yeah,
with Western help, the so-called modern West. I mean,
yeah,
that's of course contentious, and
yeah,
one should argue against this. But that's what he felt about these two men, who had come to
yeah,
and the guy who was helping him, Rao, that he seemed so superstitious. The belief in green chilies and lemon,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we totally bemused him because he was also trying to find his own place in India, and he was trying to figure out things. And of course, India is complicated. That no one person is like
true.
like
Yeah,
the other.
yeah,
And I suppose he came to this was said more in a sense of bemusement and being confused and stuff like that. Yeah, and
yeah.
bewilderment. Yeah. So
Yeah, and my final question to you, I mean, you write so much. I mean, for different mediums, and how does a writer who has written 10 novels and writes regularly for various platforms, uh, learn? I mean, kind of, step it up. So how do you do that? Do you get time to read? How does one do that? And also your book recommendations if you have gotten time to read.
uh, okay. Uh, you know, writing is my life. Okay. That that's what I do almost, writing and reading and being with books, besides looking after
Yeah,
my family, is what I do. And like I told you, it came to me very late, when I was in EPW and I was
yeah,
29, 30 or so. So I kind of see it as a gift and I don't want to lose it. So I feel that every day I should spend some time, reading or writing,
Right.
or thinking about writing. I like,
Right.
I have this kind of folder in my
Okay.
computer where I have,
Yeah.
it's called ideas. So whenever something
Okay.
strikes me, I just somehow write it down. And of course, when I go back to it, it sounds totally totally fake and
Okay.
makes no sense at all. Like I'll write down something at random and it'll not make sense to me. But at least I've thought about it. It gives me a lot of several
Yeah.
pleasurable moments just thinking through an idea, thinking about a character, thinking about a story. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so where were we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my question was that okay, I mean there are 10 novels of course, and you write in so many genres also. How does one get better actually? Do you feel it that you're getting better? It's a strange question, maybe stupid
No, no,
also, but
no, please, no, it's not, it's
yeah,
not. But let me just, when I first came to the US about 9 years ago, I got admission into an MFA program,
yeah,
and that was a kind of blessing because I worked with teachers for over 2 years, different
okay,
writers, and
okay,
I realized the kind of attention that one must pay to one's writing. Anything that you put down, every
right,
sentence needs attention, and
yeah,
to go back to your writing, um, because writing is one thing. Writing a first draft, don't get worried about the first draft because that's going to be
yeah,
untidy, messy, and all kinds of things. But to go
yeah,
back to it, to revisit, to rewrite, to revise,
yeah,
like
yeah.
this book, The Hottest Summer, I think I did at least 9, 10 redrafts. What you see is
Wow.
actually the tenth revision.
Uh,
Yeah, and of course the the edits that my editor sent back. Oh, she was wonderful.
yeah,
Arpita is a
yeah,
wonderful editor. Yeah, so to remember that to revising and rewriting is far more important than the actual fact, and
yeah,
writing is essentially it's like devotion. It's like something that you have to be be with, alone,
yeah.
isolated, and to see
Oh
through
yes.
and never lose hope because the world will see your writing in a different way always, and a lot of things like luck, good fortune, all that matters. But
Yeah.
when writing, just think only of that and nothing else. That's
Well,
what I
I
mean.
mean,
I know these sound very easy to say, but it's not. Believe me. So
oh yes, oh yes, and actually Neha was asking me that how's the book, and I was like, and I'm not saying it because you're here, because I've been reading a lot. I mean, for the
yeah,
past
you
five
read.
six
Yeah,
years, I said it's top notch, and she was like, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Top notch meaning that it doesn't get better usually than this." So I was so happy to read this one, The Hottest
thank
Summer in
you.
Years, guys. You have to pick it up from Amazon, and truly, I mean, the what you say that paying attention to every sentence, that was like I was feeling that, and it's amazing. And thank you so much for this one. And I am, yeah, it's I want to say so much more, but you are right here. If it was someone else right here, I would have said much more. I don't want to flatter you too much, but guys, pick it up from Amazon, and anywhere else they
Yeah,
can pick it up from.
the dog ears bookshop. Uh,
Yeah,
they'll
their
deliver the dog
website.
ears.
Their website also.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
guys, leave an Amazon review. Anu is also available on social media, Instagram, and are you on Facebook?
yeah. I am on Facebook. Yeah.
Great. So Instagram and Facebook and Amazon, leave a review, and that's about it. Thank you so much, and thanks for taking time out. It was an awesome time reading this one, and yeah,
Yeah, I've
thank you,
just
Anu. Yeah, you
yeah.
have written it there. Yeah. Uh, Anuradha has just left a comment, with the bookshop's name. So you guys can go to the website, pick it up from there. And yeah, I mean, awesome read. Thank you so much. And looking
Yeah,
forward to so much more.
yeah. Thank you, Rohan and Neha for book nerds and for doing this. Did you want some book recommendations? I thought you said that, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
No,
I
no, it's
forgot.
okay. No, no, it's just
Goodness.
because three books at the top of my, I mean, they're just right here. So,
Yes. Of course, it's all about that here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know I'm reading Girish Karnad's memoirs,
Okay.
A Life in Play,
That's
which
a
is
recent one, na? That's a recent one.
yeah.
That's a
So yeah, it's been translated recently into English by his
yeah,
son and
yeah,
Srinath Perur.
yeah,
So that's one book I'm reading, and
yeah.
also Ram Guha's collect. There's a book of essays in honor of Ramchandra Guha. It's called A
Okay,
Functioning Anarchy, by several
okay,
scholars who've written essays in his honor,
okay,
and a novel
okay.
that is mystery. You must pick this up. It's by
Yeah.
it's called the Satapur Moonstone by Sujata Massey. So it's
Okay,
about this
okay,
detective, a woman detective in 1920s Bombay, and
okay.
it's a fascinating mystery. So yeah, three books that I'm reading now. So
And
apart
everybody,
from other,
I know that you love Bombay.
oh yeah, yeah,
Guys, this one, do check it out. Anyways, so
yeah,
thank you so much, Anuradha. It has been great talking to you, and perhaps the next one comes along, and we'll talk soon. Thank you
yeah.
so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and thank you everyone for taking time out on Saturday evening and being here. Yeah,
Most of us in India are at home, so you know
yeah,
we have time at a hand. Oh my God, let's not talk about the pandemic anymore.
yeah. I know we exchanged emails about that. So yeah,
Oh
so
yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
yeah. Take care. Yeah, bye,
Okay.
everyone. Bye,
Bye. Bye.
bye.